as I've listened to a few of the other meetings, there are a lot of things that have stood out to me about questions that have been asked, like, do we know each other? Do we understand each other? People of different backgrounds have built the United States of America and Utah. It's important for students to see themselves in the curriculum. And we couldn't agree more. They're absolutely right. Some of the things he said that really hit home with me was example of his Laotian American student, who at the end of that lesson, she said, "I am an American." He said it twice in two different examples, that the ending statement concluded was, "I am an American." And I think that that's one thing that's been missing as we've been talking in this discussion. It was either last meeting or the meeting before that someone said, we're teaching students to be global citizens. And I thought, nope, no, we're not. No. That's wrong. The United States did not sign the Universal Declaration of Human Rights because we have a constitution. And we, as Americans and Utahns, have said we will honor our Constitution and teach our Constitution. How ethnic studies and being an American ties in to allowing everyone to celebrate their heritage and culture in an American way, in the American exceptionalist way. That does not mean we are superior. It means we are the exception to the rule. And that we have taught that all men are equal, and we have shown that throughout history. And so I just want to make sure that as we give our perspective, that those ideals are held within the standards of this curriculum, that we are not teaching people to be global citizens, we are teaching them to be Americans. Representative Holland said in another meeting that I just thought was wonderful, that she said, the goal is to incorporate people of diverse backgrounds so they can see themselves as a part of this. And I agree, there are actually studies on suicide and depression, that students are less likely to be depressed or suicidal if they can see themselves and they know their history and they can identify with, their grandparents, that they have a story and they can resonate with their story. So we just want to make sure that that is done through a certain lens, that when that happens, not if, that this is done and it adheres to the standards that were set aside in HR901. It was a resolution that was passed during the special session. Following concepts are not included in the curriculum standards. That one race is inherently superior or inferior to another race. That an individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment because of that individual's race, or that an individual's moral character is determined by the individual's race. This report to the Utah legislature that was done last month, that it was done by the Legislative Auditor General, and that it actually cited the same standards. So it said right now there's a problem in the curriculum and in standards, and its recommendation was to go back to this resolution, and it actually cited the 3 points that I just stated. And I think that it's essential that they be clearly stated in the curriculum standards, because if not, it leaves too much room for interpretation. And here's the big problem. So in the audit summary and recommendations that it gave you, it actually said that the guidance needs to be more specific, and it said it 6 times, that currently the standards are not specific enough, and it allows too much room for people to be told that they're superior or inferior because of their race.
If I remember correctly, from the audit, they maybe found 2 things that they had questions about, and overall, critical race theory and all these accusations that have been made were not found in our schools. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. It's problem enough that they gave 11 recommendations for it to be fixed. So I would submit that if there are just a few instances here or there, that they wouldn't have had 11 recommendations and come out with a huge audit. But that's just...
Thank you. I would say that's based on interpretation and my understanding and how I read the audit. I would view that differently, and I think talking about the audit is very important for this committee as we move forward, or before our next meeting, because I think I really want to, I would love to maybe bring the auditors to this committee to talk about what they found in the audit before we move forward with other stuff. I just think that's really important.
I think the legislature does a great job of defining what ought be. And I think the place where our organization can come in and show you, okay, what is? As a result of what you want to happen, let's show you what is happening as a result and how is this being implemented. So that you can see, although you might have the best of intentions and ideals when you put these guidelines out, that's not always what is happening. A statement that was said in the last meeting was, hate is not taught in the classroom, hate is taught in the home. And we were actually sent over 100 pages that we turned over to Superintendent Dixon of how this is kind of the opposite. And so I just wanted to give a few examples of that, just so you could understand why I'm pressing the point so heavily of the need for the lens that no race should be taught to be superior, inferior. And I think that that needs to be codified, because as it's not presently, this is what is being taught in school. Not necessarily in every classroom, but it is happening, so I feel like it's important for it to be addressed. So I'm just going to read 2 or 3 examples just so that you can see the effects of this not being codified and why it's so important to address it as you set up the standards, about how explicit it needs to be stated. So the first day of the 4th quarter, so my daughter went to class, and they had to do a privilege walk. Now, obviously, the point of this was to have all the white kids in the front, and at the end, then have all the black or brown kids in the back to show how their life is so hard and the white kids have it so easy. As Black Americans, and with a long history of our family and ancestors fighting for civil rights, this was just very insulting and offensive. They are putting the idea in these kids' heads that poor little colored people can't possibly have a good life and make something of themselves because of how racist America is and how awful white people are, even if the white people don't know they are racist. Honestly, can there be anything more detrimental and insulting? We have taught our kids that they all have opportunity in the world, and what they choose to do is up to them. Their success, along with their failures, are their own. Another is, when I was in 6th grade, I asked my teacher why Christopher Columbus was racist. She replied that he was an evil European man. Then we were talking about the newfounded idea to have government-funded solar plants. I said to my teacher, that sounds great and all, but how is the government going to pay for it? He replied, the government would most likely just tax the rich white people. I was shocked by this, so I asked, why only rich white people? Why not the rich black people or the rich Asian people? He called me racist. I don't need to read them all to you, but I'm happy to pass these along so that you can see.
Representative Romero.
I just want to reiterate that I think we should have the auditors come present to this committee. And I was the one that said hate is taught at home, and I believe that. I've never experienced that and my child's very privileged because I'm his mother, but I've never known of hate being taught in school.
Chair, I will forward this all to the committee so that you can witness firsthand. If you haven't yet seen it or known of it, then that way you can have the documentation for yourselves.
Okay. Ms. Loveday.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. When you forward those, can you make sure the students' names are removed?
Yes, they are. They already are, and
awesome.
the teacher as well. So we keep it all anonymous for that. I just wanted to illustrate why we feel it's so important that these standards be very specific, and we'd love to see them adhere to HR901.